As promised, here's your walkthrough of the Photoshop 2 assignment and an in-class exercise. So we'll start with just an exercise where we start with a new file. So you click on New File, and then you wait for it to launch. There we go. And we're going to set some dimensions. So we want to be in pixels. If you're in something else, change to pixels. And then we're going to change the width to 1920. We're going to change the height to 1080. And we're going to change the resolution to 150 pixels per, inch per centimeter. It doesn't really matter for me for this one. Let's stay with metric. And then we have to reset it to 150. We're going to rename it background 1. And then we can just come down and click create. And we should have a kind of wide screen going on here. The first thing we're going to do is going to add some color to our background. So you go over, our background is selected right now, that's perfect. We're going to go over to the color picker at the bottom left corner and click on the square in the front, and that should open up your color picker. There we go. And pick anything you want for a color. Nice, something like that. Now you'll notice when you click OK, that didn't change anything because you need to apply the color to your canvas. So going down the tools to the one that's kind of got the gradient, it's above the drop, the gradient tool, right click on that and then select the paint bucket tool. The minute you click anywhere in your canvas, you should change the color. All right, so next we are going to add a layer. Down in the bottom right corner, we click on the plus beside the garbage can. That creates a new layer. And we see it here called layer 1. We're going to make sure that layer is highlighted. We're going to work in this layer with a brush tool. So below the band-aid, you see the brush tool. And just confirming, all the controls I'm going to need have appeared across the top here. So I'm kind of scanning along things that you might want. We're going to start by going to the brush preset dialog box. So I click here. And we're going to set our hardness and our size, but it's worth noting that there are a lot of really, really cool brushes available. These are our plain ones, but if you go into dry media, wet media, you can replicate pastels and crayon, pencil, and brushes, and then there's truly crazy stuff like tire treads and all that. So play around for sure, super fun. But we will be changing the size to 800. And you'll notice if I move off how big my circle is, that's how big my dab is. And we're going to change our hardness to 0, which it already is at, sorry. I was thinking the softness. And then we're good. So I'm going to click on that fuzzy blob again just to deselect it. I want to pick a different color, so very, very corner, super hard to see. That's going to be a challenge for me. And I'm going to pick, oh, there's some crazy colors over here. Maybe too crazy. Right here. And I'm just going to dab on my canvas in a couple of places. There we go. I did that dabbing just by clicking. So instead of click and drag to right, I did a single click to make a spot. I'm going to head over to my layers tab. If you don't have it open, I'm going to make sure layer 1 is still highlighted. And I'm going to mess around with the opacity. I'm going to lower it down to about 60%. And you can see the effect this has. Become quite hard to see. And then the next thing I'm going to do is mess with the blend mode, which is this drop down menu that currently says normal. This is up to you, whatever you want. Check out what it does. Dissolve. I love dissolve. I'm doing dissolve. But there's lots of really cool things that you can choose. So I'm going to choose dissolve just for the heck of it. And then we're going to repeat the process. So we're going to add another layer. I'm going to pick a color for that layer. And I'm going to change that color to, I was in the blues before. I'm going to change it to see if this makes any difference if I go full blue. I'm going to change my brush size. I'm going to make it a little smaller. Not that small though. Checking it out. There we go. And I'm going to leave the hardness at 0. And then I do the same thing. Do some dabs. Mess with your opacity. Mess with your filter. Whatever you want. I get some really cool ones the further down you go. Depends on your colors though. My colors are the wrong colors. Anyway, maybe I'll go with linear burn. And you can keep doing that and just play with the different blend modes, play with the different colors and how that goes, play with the brushes. The second in-class exercise, which could also be your assignment, starts when you open a file. So you're going to select the open option right here beside new file, under new file. And then you are going to open up in-class exercise bokeh background data file, which you can download from Brightspace under the week 9 module. Once you have that open, you should see a whole bunch of really pretty flags, and we are going to make this look completely different. So you see this big giant circle because I still have my brush from last time. If I want to ever deal with that, good thing to know, if you right click on the brush picture and you hit reset tool or all tools if you've been messing around with a lot of things, you'll notice it goes back to the original preset that Photoshop has. All right, I've got a background. What I want to do now is save my document. So of course you're going to do save as background 1, background 2, whatever. And then we're going to go over to the background layer. If you right click or double click for Mac, you have an option to duplicate the layer. And that's what we want to do here. We're just going to duplicate it. Yeah, sure, background copy, that sounds good. And then we'll just hide the original layer by clicking on the eyeball. We're going to apply a filter to this layer. And to do that, we're going to go up to the top, click on filter, and the one I want you to choose is under blur, Gaussian blur. And there's lots of really cool ones. Make sure you explore. So you can see what the Gaussian blur does. Right now it's at a radius of 1 pixel, so it's kind of dirtying up the edges. But if you increase the size, looking at our document, it goes quite crazy. So we are going there. So we're going to set the blur level to 90 pixels, which completely changes the picture. That's fine. We're going to go back to the layers panel here, down to the bottom, and remember that circle that's half filled in, create a new fill or adjustment layer. We're going to click on that and we're going to add something to this layer, which is going to be a color balance. And this gives you the opportunity to really mess with the colors in your picture. So you'll see that the properties panel has now opened. My layers has gone to the bottom. That's fine. I can just click layers and make it visible again, but this works just fine for me for now. So if I mess with the cyan, if I make it more green, I mess with the yellow blue balance, whatever you like, you know. Ooh, I don't know about that. Maybe we'll go more towards the blue. There we go. I'm going to click open layers so I can see it again, and we've done that color balance. We're going to do another one of these. This time we're going to choose curves. And curves opens up something in properties, which I'm going to drag this up. So if you ever can't see what you need to see, or you want to see, you can just drag it to change the size of the panels. And when you click and drag this line, it really changes what you see in terms of the color and the wash. Oh, I like that one for a sec there. But how do I get back there? No, anyway. Or you can go darker. Maybe we'll go darker this time. There we go. Next, we're going to add a new layer. So I click Layers to open my layer panel, and the plus square, and that's layer 1. I'm going to rename this. So if I double click on the words layer 1, it allows me to rename it. I'm going to call it circle 1 so we can see where we're going soon. And we're going to use the brush tools, but we're going to go much more in depth with them. So instead of just going to the kind of brush settings, we're going to go to toggle the brush settings panel right here. And this is going to give us all these options. We're only just going to quickly select a couple things. We're going to deal with the brush tip shape, which we already have selected. So we want to change the size, which is currently 13 pixels. We're going to change it to 125. You can see what that does there. And instead of that hardness of 0% like we had before, we're going to change it to a hardness of 100. Whoops, not 199. 100%. And you see you get that really rough edge. And we're going to change the spacing to 80%. And you can see in the preview below how it's affecting what your brush is going to look like. Next, I'm going to click into the shape dynamics. My size jitter, I will change to 50%. So that's just the randomness of the size in your brush stroke. So you can see it can range by 50% there. Now we're kind of going to undo that by putting a control in, which is a fade. And it tells you when to stop doing the jitter. So if you change it to 15, would it make a difference? Yeah. But we're going to put it to 1, which makes it look like just one dot. We're going to have the minimum diameter be 100%. So that means they're not going to change size. Our angle jitter and our roundness jitter are 0%, and the controls are off. The other one we'll explore right now is a scattering one. So we're going to change it to both axes by clicking this box here. We're going to put a scatter. It's at 30% now. And you can explore this by just going, and you can see what a scatter does. Just spin stuff around. And we're going all the way to 1000%. So it looks like all those other circles aren't there, but they're just so scattered we can't see them. Our count is 1. That's okay. Our count jitter is 100%. And both controls should be off. Excellent. Okay. I'm going to click back up in that file folder with a brush in it to close this dialog box. And I'm just going to start in, one side of the canvas and drag across to the other side. There we go. We're going to head back over to our layers panel, and remember our blend mode was this drop down that says normal, and we're going to change it from normal to overlay. Then we're going to go back to our filters and our good old Gaussian blur. We're going to change it not to be so crazy. I have to undo because I just picked the automatic one. So the one that's there gave me that same 90 pixel blur. So I don't want that much blur. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur. So I don't want the same action I did last time. Instead of 90 pixels, I'd like 30. I'm just going to make some fuzzy dots out of it. Nice. And we're going to reduce the layer opacity back over on our layers panel. We're going to reduce it from 100% to 50%. You can see they kind of fade away on you. Not quite there. What else? Close enough. We're going to repeat this. New layer. Circle 2 Double click to rename it. We're going to go up and change our brush size, and you can do this here because we're not making drastic changes to other things, to 175. So make the brush size bigger. I'm going to click out of that. Oops, my bad. And then we're going to go across again. I'm going to back up because I wanted to change my color. So I'll go into a color picker and I'll go lighter. I always feel like I'm going lighter and then I'm going darker. Okay, we'll try that again. There we go. Same next steps. Blend mode is overlay. Opacity was 50%. Now knock it up to maybe 60. Gaussian blur. Under the filters, blur. Gaussian blur. And it was 30. Let's drop it down to 15. So it should be much less blurred. Okay. Another layer. Circle 3. Brush size increases to say 200. Pick the color you want. Drag across, see what happens. And if you don't feel like there's enough, this is probably not good advice, just keep adding more. I like a lot. We're going to change to overlay. We're going to change the opacity to probably 80% now because we are 70%, I guess is where we are. And we're going to change the filter to a Gaussian blur of maybe 10 pixels. And one last layer for the win. Circle 4. Brush size. Go 250. Up it up. Make it a bit more exciting. And cross. See what happens. Well, that's not enough. I always want more. That's my problem. Put the overlay on. Opacity. What are we at? 50, 60, 70, 80 now? We're going to do our filter again, although I almost feel like this doesn't need one. Gaussian blur. We're at 10. Let's see what 5 looks like. That's pretty good, 5. And there we go. We have a bokeh background. We're going to reset our tool, right click like that, and you want to save this as a Photoshop document, which it should already be when you saved originally. If you need a JPEG, which you do for my thing, you're going to click on Export, Export As, and then it should give you a dialog box. There it is, where you can pick your format. For me, I want you to switch it to JPEG. You can pick your quality, and you should be good to do everything. That's it for this one.